Next on Currents News, President Trump is taking new action that he believes will protect religious minorities and end the crisis in Syria. Women deacons, should the church have them? It's a hot-button topic at the Amazon Summit today. We have exclusive team coverage from Rome.
A deacon in Brooklyn is thriving in his ministry. We introduced you to him 2 years ago, and now I'll have an update on how he's bringing new life to the church. I'm Tim Harfman, and I'll have more.
Plus, the students of the Diocese of Brooklyn are more than $2 million richer. That's money made in just one night. We'll tell you why. The news starts right now. Good evening, I'm Emily Druby. President Trump is lifting sanctions on Turkey because the country is signing off on a permanent ceasefire in Syria. The commander-in-chief is warning that if Ankara doesn't live up to its promise to protect religious and ethnic minorities, he'll hit Turkey again. Nadia Romero reports the latest.
At the White House Wednesday, President Trump praising efforts by his administration to stop the bloodshed in Syria.
The government of Turkey informed my administration that they would be stopping combat and their offensive in Syria and making the ceasefire permanent.
But it was a deal struck between the presidents of Turkey and Russia, who plan to jointly patrol the border of Turkey and Syria, establishing a safe zone and removing Kurds from the border region.
We have done them a great service, and we've done a great job for all of them. And now we're getting out.
The president says he's keeping a campaign promise to bring all troops in the Middle East home, sentiments recently echoed by Secretary of Defense Mark Esper.
We will temporarily reposition in Iraq pursuant to bringing the troops home. And so it's just one part of a continuing phase, but eventually those troops are going to come home.
But after the announcement this week that U.S. forces in Afghanistan have quietly been reduced over the last year.
This is a good time to go beyond just eastern Syria and also express ourselves on the inappropriateness of drawing down in Afghanistan.
Besides some U.S. troops guarding oil fields in Syria, President Trump saying the in-battle area is no longer the U.S.'s responsibility.
Let someone else fight over this long, blood-stained sand.
In Washington, Nadia Romero, Currents News.
American troops in Iraq have now been given a deadline to get out. The order comes as the troops are transitioning from Syria. U.S. Defense Secretary Mark Esper got the word from his Iraqi counterpart in Baghdad. The soldiers must leave within 4 weeks. Earlier, Esper had said the troops would stay in Iraq to keep an eye on ISIS to stop them from gaining strength. Now the Iraqis are saying there's a deal for the forces to go to Kuwait, Qatar, or the U.S. 2 Catholic churches in Iraq are going to be rebuilt after they were destroyed by ISIS. The UN and the United Arab Emirates are making a deal to save them. The 200-year-old houses of worship are in Mosul. They were leveled by terrorists in 2014. The UAE is promoting the reconstruction as a way Iraq can shape its future and send a message of light in the dark times. Moving now from the Middle East to other violence across the globe, the deadly protests in Chile are intensifying today with soldiers opening fire with water cannons. The troops and police preventing protesters from reaching the presidential palace in Santiago. President Sebastián Piñera is trying to quell the country's worst political crisis in 30 years. He's promising a guaranteed income and other economic benefits. So far, at least 15 people have died in the unrest. This morning, Pope Francis said he's worried about the violence.
Esto está accadendo in Cile. Mi auguro che ponendo fine alle violente manifestazioni attraverso il dialogo ci si adoperi per trovare soluzioni alla crisi e far fronte alle difficoltà che l'hanno generata per il bene dell'intera popolazione.
The violence in Chile erupted after a transit fare hike was announced. That's since been rolled back, but a curfew in the capital of Santiago is being extended for the 4th straight day. Today, the Pope's historic summit on the Amazon tackled a major and controversial topic, the role of women in the rainforest and throughout the church worldwide. Melissa Butts is in Rome with the latest developments. Melissa?
Yes, well, we're here in the final week of the Synod, but a familiar topic keeps coming up, that of women who are still seeking greater positions and responsibility within the church.
During the daily press briefing, one female religious sister and synod participant spoke of her opinion of women in the church. Sister Rosetti said in this particular synod on the Amazon, the presence of women is undeniable. Our recognition is not the result of our silence. On the contrary, we want to become protagonists in this process. We're calling for this recognition and participation in decision-making processes. The Archbishop of Bombay, India, Cardinal Oswald Gracia, says many times bishops themselves limit a woman's role.
Church law allows everything except a woman cannot hear confession, she can't say mass, and she can't give confirmation. But practically everything else, I think we bishops are the ones who are really not using the full opportunities that we have to give women much more, which we should really do.
The Cardinal said women can and many times are in charge of a parish, teachers, organizers, or directors, and these roles should be made use of, whether in remote areas or not.
Opening talk to the Synod.
The religious sister from the briefing said that women are still seeking more space within the church, and they won't be silent until they get it. At the Vatican, Melissa Butts, Currents News. Back to you, Emily.
Melissa, Cardinal Gracia seems to strongly support new roles for women. Is there a divide among the other Synod Fathers on this?
Well, of the 12 provisional groups inside the Synod Hall, 7 of them are in favor of ordaining women to the permanent diaconate, while as 50% of the Synod Hall is also in favor of ordaining married men, to the priesthood. While as all 12 groups are also in favor of having a greater participation of lay men and women.
I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Thank you, Melissa Butts, reporting from Rome.
Thank you.
Both issues, ordaining married men as priests and women as deacons, are rooted in canon law and not Catholic doctrine. That means the Synod Fathers could consider laws that state only men are eligible for ordination to the diaconate on a case-by-case basis. Canon law provides that the rules can be relaxed or dispensed with altogether by anyone who possesses executive power, such as the Pope. Also standing by in St. Peter's Square is the national correspondent for the Tablet and Crux, Christopher White. He joins us now for more on the controversial topic. Christopher, as we just heard, the role of women took center stage at today's news conference. What are the chances that when the Synod Fathers vote on their final document this Saturday, there will be a recommendation to ordain women as deacons?
Well, Emily, look, the Pope in 2016 commissioned a study of this very question, and that is a study that is ongoing, and the Pope has said it needs further historical study. Look, I've spoken to a number of the Synod Fathers who have said there will be some mention of it, but the language has yet to be decided on. At this point, it appears to be very vague and is likely to sort of, recommend that the issue be further studied, as the Pope has said up to date.
Now another topic, the shortage of priests in the rainforest. It results in some Catholics receiving communion only once or twice a year. What's the Synod likely to say about ordaining married men as priests?
Well, Emily, the language in its current form separates what they call a ministry of presence versus a ministry of visitation. So the ministry of visitation refers to these regions in which, a priest may come once or twice a year to give communion. And the Synod Fathers want to push for a language that allows for a ministry of presence so that in some, narrow circumstances, married men could be ordained so that there's an active priest that could provide the Eucharist on a more regular basis.
Christopher, what else can we expect to be in the final document that's going to the Pope for his approval?
Look, I think the heart and sort of backbone of this document is going to be sort of an elevation of Laudato Si, which is the Pope's 2015 letter on the environment, where he calls for all of creation to sort of, change and convert their ways of living to care for all of God's creatures on the planet. That's sort of been a major theme of the Francis papacy, and I think we're going to see him sort of elevate that once again in the way that one bishop put it to me, to provide a jump start, particularly to the U.S. and other countries that have failed to do so.
Christopher White, national correspondent for the Tablet and Crux, thank you so much for being with us today from Rome.
Thank you.
For continuing coverage of the Synod that you won't find anywhere else, you can count on Currents News and the Tablet. Be with us every night at 7 p.m. on Net TV and check in at thetablet.org. Also, the latest Synod developments will be posted on our Facebook and Twitter sites. Deacons in the Brooklyn Diocese already have new roles. They're freeing up pastors so they can better minister to their people. Tonight, Currents News' Tim Harfman checks in with one of the deacons. He's running the business side of 2 churches. Tim reports from Park Slope.
Deacon Dean Dobbins is a busy man. He's the business manager at St. Augustine Church in Park Slope. Now he's taking on a second Brooklyn church, St. Catherine of Alexandria in Borough Park.
I didn't think about it, I accepted it because I know what I could do here, I could bring there.
He's on the job thanks to Brooklyn's Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio. He's put in place a program that frees up priests from office work so that they can better minister to their people.
We're trying to relieve the priest of the administration, get them to do more of the pastoral work. So that's basically the aim of, I think, for the future.
Okay. With a business background, the deacon deals with day-to-day operations, so priests can bring new life to the church.
I think we need to evangelize more and bring in more people to our church. We have some beautiful churches in Brooklyn and Queens, and we have a lot of churches in Brooklyn and Queens, and the pastors do a great job, but we continue to need to bring more people back.
Father Thomas Brosnan says the bishop's program is working, and Deacon Dean is making a big difference.
After being a pastor for 25 years, I can relax in a sense and just devote myself to the pastoral needs here at St. Augustine.
The business managing deacon is also noticing that both mass attendance and donations are up.
The collections at St. Augustine's just went up almost $1,000 a week due to just a letter we sent out to the parishioners asking for help.
Jonathan Fenelon works at St. Augustine's Rectory. He's grateful that Deacon Dean is there.
At the end of the day, we all know what we had to do. So that makes it easier on everybody.
Easier on everybody, and the church is thriving. In Park Slope, Tim Harfman, Currents News.
Getting a Catholic education for their children is something parents dream about. The great group in the Brooklyn Diocese, Futures in Education, works very hard to make those dreams come true. Last night, they held their annual Scholarship Fund dinner. Hundreds of people, including Brooklyn's Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio and NYPD Commissioner James O'Neill, gathered to ensure that everyone has access to a Catholic education.
20% of our children are not Catholic, but they get the same education as everybody else. We give them a value system. We teach them the 10 Commandments, teach them to pray, teach them that there is God. All of that's so important.
Giving back, I think, it certainly is the ultimate gift. We had the opportunity and the privilege to go to a Catholic school, and you do well throughout your life. You do a lot of good things, but a night like tonight really, really does help pay it forward, if I can use that term. Because you look back and there's so many people in this city today that don't have the opportunity that maybe we had when we were kids. They're coming in from other countries. They're working. The parents are working hard, working 2 jobs. And if we could do anything to help their kids move forward, I think it's a great thing.
Several people were honored at the dinner, including Commissioner O'Neill, who attended Catholic school. Another highlight of the gala is students performing musical numbers on stage. Altogether, the evening raised $2.4 million, money which helps underprivileged kids attend Catholic academies in Brooklyn and Queens. Over 30% of the families assisted by Futures live at or below the poverty line. There's a lot more news headed your way. Controversy erupted when President Trump called the impeachment battle a lynching. Now Joe Biden is apologizing for using the same word when Bill Clinton was on trial. Giving away money to everyone is being talked about on the Democratic presidential campaign trail. Is that moral and good for the economy? An expert joins us. With the World Series underway, we'll hear from a Catholic priest who blesses the bats, but is it enough to get his team through? Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@DeSaleMedia.org or call our 24-hour number 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. Joe Biden is backtracking tonight after blasting President Trump's tweet that called the impeachment battle on Capitol Hill a lynching. The Democrat used the same term years ago, defending President Bill Clinton when he was under fire.
Even if the president should be impeached, history is going to question whether or not this was just a partisan lynching or whether or not it was something that, in fact, met the standard.
After the 1998 video resurfaced, Biden offered up an apology saying this wasn't the right word to use and I'm sorry about that. Still, the presidential candidate bashed Trump's use of the word, saying the president continues to stroke racial divides in this country daily. The Democrats running for president are all talking about how to help lower-income people pay their bills. One idea is to give every adult in America free money. It's called a universal basic income. Candidate Andrew Yang is a big supporter. Yang says the free money would help reach the Christian goal of loving one's neighbor. St. John's University economics professor Charles Clark also argues that a government-funded income for everyone would be good. He joins us now. Charles, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
Now, how would this giveaway of taxpayer money work? Is it just a redistribution of wealth under a different name?
Well, it's a redistribution of income and spending power. And each family would get a monthly income based on how many people are in it, based on, for his proposal, on how many adults each month.
And now, would a universal basic income be morally acceptable to the Catholic Church?
Well, we have to be clear that there is no Catholic economic policy, and the Church has values that are 2,000 years old, so they have to fit each time period. One of those values is to reduce poverty, help the poor and the marginalized. And this certainly would have a big impact in lifting everyone above the poverty line.
And now, when it comes to this idea, what about the economy? What are the risks and possible benefits?
Well, one of the risks that people worry about is that people will take the cash and not work. So how does it affect the labor supply is what economists have looked into and in all these experiments. And one of the things they found is that the only group that works less under a basic income system are married women with children who have children, and so they can better balance their work at home duties because they have this income. But for adult males and for single people without children, the labor participation rates are the same.
Sounds like the risks for some are the benefits for others. What are some of the other benefits?
Well, the main benefit is that you redistribute income so that poor and middle income families have more money to spend, and taking money from the top, where so much over the past 30 years has been concentrated in the top 1%, which is harmful to the economy, but it's also harmful to society. That's why there's so much anger in the country, because inequality has pits people against other groups because they have now less, and they're blaming immigrants, they're blaming women because they now have equal rights, instead of saying, well, really, it's just income inequality.
And now you've argued that the universal basic income could be funded through a flat income tax of about 39%. Many Americans pay a lot less than that. Will they be hurt?
Yeah, well, that was a study I did many, many years ago, so I haven't run an estimate in the last 10 years. But what you need to look at is their effective tax. So if you take how much money they get and how much they tax, it would be less than what they have now for probably 70% of the population. But the top 30%, they certainly are paying a lot more in taxes than they are getting in benefits.
And now, this isn't the first time we've heard a similar idea. It came up when Richard Nixon was president. Why didn't it take off then?
It was very close to passing, and what stopped it was the southern politicians, Southern Democrats, didn't want it because it would have given black families and black people a source of income separate from them being farm workers. And so they blocked it because this was one of the ways they controlled the black communities in the South.
Wow, that's incredibly interesting. Charles Clark, economics professor at St. John's University, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
We're following a developing story from England that remains a mystery tonight. The bodies of 39 people were discovered in a truck that was found east of London. But hours after the discovery, police are saying much about the case is unknown. They haven't identified the victims or know why they were in the truck. The driver is under arrest, and investigators are pursuing a theory that it could be a case of human trafficking. Still to come on Currents News, we'll introduce you to Monsignor Stephen Rosetti. He's from Washington, and right now he's very excited. It's all about baseball. And please check out one of the latest features in the tablet, the Our Diocesan Family page. That's where you can send in photos of your family receiving certain sacraments, such as baptism, First Communion, confirmation, and marriage. For more information and to submit your pictures, go to thetablet.org/ourdiocesanfamily. We'll be right back. A priest is warming up tonight for Game 2 of the World Series. He's not taking the field, but he's still a major part of the dugout. Monsignor Stephen Rosetti is praying for both the Nationals and the Astros, but he knows God is rooting for Washington. Monsignor Stephen Rosetti wears two hats, one a professor's cap, teaching at the Catholic University of America, preparing seminarians for the priesthood. The other, a baseball cap. As the chaplain for the Washington Nationals, the team is in the World Series, and Monsignor Rosetti will be there too.
Am I going to the World Series game? Of course I'm going to the World Series.
Monsignor Rosetti's role isn't all blessing baseballs. He also helps the team cope with their struggles and achieve their dreams.
I like it because it's really a hands-on ministry. You know, as a professor, I enjoy working with seminarians, especially I teach seminarians, but to really actually have a job where you're out there ministering to people and with their hopes and dreams and sorrows and difficulties, it's just part of why you became a priest. It's an important thing for the priest to begin to relate to these people as people, not as stars or public figures. So I relate to them as people. I get to know them and get to know their families, and it's nice. And when they get injured, we pray with them, and they ask you to bless them. And many of the guys, even who are not Catholic, who are very much appreciate the presence of a priest and ask you to pray for them and bless them. And so I'm always blessing them and blessing their bats and praying for them when they're ill or they're injured. And it's a nice ministry, really, to be with them and to walk with them, whether they win or lose.
While watching the World Series, Monsignor Rosetti will be remembering the Catholic pillar, love thy neighbor, but in his heart, he'll be pulling for his team.
I'm a big rosary fan, so I say the rosary all the time anyway. But somehow when the game gets tight, I'm always thumbing my bead. So I just, I realize that God loves both sides. And I pray for both sides, but I think he knows that I'm rooting for the Nats.
The 2019 national season has been a roller coaster ride, but Monsignor Rosetti says it's nothing short of electric. I guess we'll just have to see if his prayers are answered. That is Currents News. I'm Emily Druby. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.